I'm sure most of us, at some point in our lives, would have had a go on a swing. Maybe not a swing like this. We're not going to have any examples this morning because that will not go well at all. But the thing about a swing is that you can either encourage it to go higher and faster. I realise that was quite slow. Or you can get in the way of it, literally, by sticking out your feet in front of you, and you can make it grind to a halt straight away. And so today, we are thinking about our final value of courage. And we're going to take some time to think about what it means for us to be courageous and how we as a family spanning different generations gathered today can call out the courage by encouraging one another in the things of God. Now, I wonder when you think about having courage, maybe with the things that we do at school, maybe with colleagues at work, maybe with our family, or whether it comes to trying new things, whether that comes naturally to you or whether that makes you feel a bit scared. Now, who here would say that they are really courageous, willing to try new things, not worried about how the outcome is going to be? Put your hands in the room if you are courageous. Anybody think they're courageous? Not many. Okay, a few. We've got a lot of this going on. I guess it depends on what it is. And maybe who here is perhaps a bit like me, a little bit more of a cautious person, likes to keep things safe, prefers to be careful with the things that we do in life. Who's a bit more cautious? A few people are, yeah. And who would say they're in the middle then? Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few middle people here. That's fantastic. So Lazarus, that we've seen from our video, is a close friend of Jesus. And he is gravely ill. His sisters, Mary and Martha, send word to Jesus, hoping that he will come and heal his brother. But instead of rushing to their side, Jesus decides to stay where he is for 2 more days. And when he finally tells the disciples that they are going back to Judea, the disciples are concerned. They are like the people on the swing who stick their legs out in front of them, who want it to come to an almighty halt. And they refuse to go any further. And they remind him that the last time he was in that region, the people tried to stone him. It was a dangerous situation. I think the disciples had a legitimate reason to be scared. They were going into hostile territory where people wanted to hurt Jesus. I think it's really easy to imagine their fear. And I think if we were put in that same situation, we would be telling Jesus, oh, I'm not sure, Jesus, if you should be going back. Jesus knew the risks, but he knew his purpose. And in the video, it says that Jesus told them that they were going to do it anyway. So despite their fear, they followed Jesus. And Thomas, who was famously known as Doubting Thomas, although I do think he gets bad press, even says, let us go so that we may die with him. So Jesus goes back to heal Lazarus. And he does that even though Lazarus, by all accounts, is already dead. It says in the video that he has been dead for 4 days. And he does this at significant risk to his life because the Jews, as I said, could try to stone him again. But he was following where the Spirit was leading him. He let go of the risk of his reputation and even the risk to his life. His courage in knowing his ultimate purpose was to lead him, despite everything that pointed against him, to go and do it anyway. At St. Swithin's and at St. Faith's, we have seen people step out and display courage in extraordinary, amazing ways. Last term, we had somebody who came to our Kintsugi Hope course, and she was really anxious. She struggled with anxiety and depression, and she's currently not able to work. She explains her struggles with anxiety, but alongside this, she also participated in Alpha. And during Alpha, she started out being very, very quiet, literally not saying anything for the first couple of weeks. But as the course progressed, we saw a real shift in her confidence levels. And we sensed a real change in her because she was having that confidence to talk about different subjects and talked about things that were important to her. And so over the summer, she began attending our Love Your Neighbour cafe. And she said that she would like to begin volunteering within our Love Your Neighbour cafe, which for her is a real step forward. She said that even though she still struggles with anxiety from time to time, she says she wants to be brave and courageous and go for it. And I was having a chat with her on Thursday, and she said that this church has really helped her grow in her confidence since she's been coming, which is fantastic. Part of what it means as a church when we talk about our value of courage is recognizing that we may be afraid, but we're going to do it anyway, and that through that, we can go deeper and further than before. I think that fear can show up in many ways. It can cause us to feel insecure, full of doubt, and it can make us feel incredibly anxious. But perhaps sometimes I think our preferred response, and certainly I've been this way, is to wait for the feelings of fear to leave us before we approach situations and not have the courage to respond. I'm sure quite a lot of us here today will know that the words fear not or do not fear appears in the Bible 365 times. How many days are there in a year? Not a leap year. Anybody know? Anybody here? Yeah. 365. Fantastic. So that's a reminder for each day. However, I think when God is saying to us, fear not, he's not telling us that we should never feel fear, that fear will not turn up in our lives again. God is actually saying to us, we have a choice and we can do it anyway. And we can see where God leads. We all have, I think, a different reaction to the swing. The exhilaration of going higher and further than you have before. Or the fear of thinking, gosh, what if I actually go too high? Perhaps a bit like me, you've been on a long rope swing or something that is bigger and scarier, something that required even more courage. But the rewards and the thrill of having done it and the experience of doing it was so much better than a small, safe swing that you did it anyway. Towards the end of 2018, for me, after a difficult time in my life when my mum died quite suddenly after a cancer diagnosis, I was invited by one of my mum's closest friends to spend Christmas and New Year in Australia. Now, immediately you might think, oh, yeah, that sounds absolutely fantastic, Victoria. You should definitely go for that. And it was an amazing offer. But there's one small little detail that held me back. I have an absolute and very real fear of flying. Up until that point, I hadn't set foot on a plane in almost 10 years. After coming back off a holiday from Spain when I was about 18, I encountered really, really bad turbulence. And every time I go on a plane, I'm not scared. I don't think I'm going to come plummeting to the ground. I think the pilot is good. But for me, I can't bear turbulence. Any kind of little movement up or down, left or right, when it starts to shake, I just don't like it. So if you ever come on a plane with me, basically I do two things. I either grip the armrest really hard, or I just look out the window and breathe. So I had two choices. I could either say no, like being on a swing, stick my legs out in front of me, refuse to go any further. But I knew this was an opportunity of a lifetime. So with incredible fear, I decided to do it anyway, armed with a load of Google relaxation techniques and prayer, obviously. So I did it anyway. And I had a wonderful time in Australia on Christmas Day. I was wearing shorts. That was weird. But I was able to serve with Mission Australia and do Christmas lunch in the park with 300 people, not just on my own. That would be awful. But with loads of other people around me serving. And I even met people who grew up in my hometown of Tunbridge. I went to the same church I went to many years ago when they were children and teenagers. Now, had I been afraid and had I stood still, there would have been so many things that I would have missed out on. I was afraid to fly, and I still don't like getting on a plane, but do you know what? I did it anyway. And the encouragement I received from friends, from other people, and from family members definitely helped me be courageous. I felt like my friends were behind me, pushing the swing for me. And in my own faith journey, when I was accepted to train to become a vicar, there were a number of choices I could have made. I could have stayed in Tonbridge, kept my job where I was working for quite a long time, keep my family and my friends close by. But actually, I felt that God was calling me to leave that and to move to Cambridge and to train. And I remember feeling absolutely terrified. I remember 2 nights before I was due to move to Cambridge, I literally didn't sleep at all, and that's not an exaggeration. I literally was awake all night. But I felt that for me, there was a chance I could be making the wrong decision. But like my trip to Australia, I have friends around me who were encouraging me, who were pushing that swing for me and allowed me to go deeper and further than before. So I went to Cambridge, and I had, for the most part, a wonderful 3 years. It wasn't fun sharing a kitchen with 8 other people, but ultimately I had a wonderful time and met some friends that I know that will be with me for the entirety of my life. And so for us as a church, we seek to be people who, despite our fears, courageously step out and do it anyway, in order that lives and communities are transformed. We do it because we know that God is with us in our most fearful moments, and God is also with us in our most courageous moments, because he is a Savior who sees all and chooses to be with us. And we also, as a church, seek to be people who call out the courage in others, who push the swing for others so that they can go further than they have before. So in your school, in your workplace, in your family, who needs you to call out the courage this week? Who in our community needs us to encourage the courage out of them? Jesus goes through the events of Calvary, the events leading up to his death and resurrection, not just because he has courage, but because the Spirit and the will of God gave him the courage to fulfill his call. What are we called to as a family of 2 churches across the generations? In what ways is he calling us to move to a bigger swing or push the swing for others so that they can go further and higher? In what ways do we need to get out of our comfort zones? We can only move out of our comfort zones if we are full of his Spirit and knowing the will of God. And I think that's why Kingdom Come is such an important aspect of what we do as a church, to be able to gather together, to encourage one another in their own faith journey, but to gather together to pray, to seek God's will for us as a church and for us placed in the city of Lincoln. And so our 3 values that we've heard about over these past 3 weeks of home, real, and courage, these are not separate values that on a good day you can just pick one if you like. But actually, these 3 are deeply connected to each other. That as people enter our 2 churches, we want to create a space which is marked by generosity and a genuine welcome that makes people feel like this is a space that is truly like home and a place that you can feel connected. And through offering this home-like environment, this encourages an atmosphere of being real, not having to pretend that you are anything other than yourself, not seeking uniformity, but unity, taking God seriously, but not ourselves too seriously. And therefore, we pray that these 2 values will lead people to have courage, knowing that they are loved by God and part of an intergenerational family who has the courage despite difficulties, in the midst of difficulties, and does it anyway. We don't have to wait for fear to disappear before we take the next step. We may be scared, but like Jesus, who knew the transformational power of the Spirit, who was with him in every step, we can move forward with God's presence, and we can do it anyway. So let us be people like Thomas, who says, let us also go. Even though we're not sure what lies ahead, let us face our fears with Jesus, knowing that we are never alone, and that even with Jesus, even in the most intimidating challenges, we can be transformed and we can experience moments of resurrection and of new life.